Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Breakthrough Blueprint, where we talk to entrepreneurs about their journeys to success and the biggest struggles that they've overcome. And today I have my amazing friend, Charter, and I will hand it over to him to introduce himself.
Hey, my name's Charter Smith, and yeah, I've been running this agency for 5 or 6 years now, and I am now transitioning into the AI domain in context engineering, and it's been a wild ride this past 6 months. So yeah, I'm excited to dig into it.
Awesome. And how did you get started in data analytics?
Data analytics. It's funny when I was in college. I became just obsessed with poker and playing online poker. I went to college. I didn't go to class. I just would just play online poker all day. There's this poker boom, and then I used my online winnings to buy a car, and I just drive to a casino. And so I was just all into this casino and poker and probability and statistics. So when I was going to UCSD, I was able to choose. I was kind of between going deep into chemistry or probability and statistics. And I was like, oh God. And then I was just in this domain of always being hyper analytical. And so I went down into probability and statistics and got my degree there. After that, I worked at a marketing tech company in San Diego for about 5 years. And when I was there, I was brought on as an analyst, and I was in a really lucky situation where they had some certain kind of gaps or opportunities within the organization. And I came up with a predictive model to optimize their ad spend. It provided a lot of really good gains. They had some legacy models in place. They had some senior people they developed. And then I came in and said, oh yeah, just build it this way, use a simple model. Kind of outperformed what they had in place. And then suddenly I was more or less in charge of business and analytics and BI at this company. So I was building out their predictive models. And then I went more to managing for the team and building out data warehouses for a number of years. And then after about 5 years there, I got the bug to move around, do my own thing. And then I've been running my own agency since 2020. And yeah, it was really focused on at the time, the problem I saw was, there's this need for data where data's in all these different places, but there was really this bottleneck in getting the data organized in one spot and actually using it. And at the same time, also there's these big shifts in that space where there's new technologies that come out, methodologies to really make enterprise level analytics accessible to smaller companies. And so I went all in on that. There's like this new field that came out around that time called analytics engineering, which is where data engineering would be more of just connecting to APIs, getting the data, doing all that stuff. And then the analytics engineering side was, okay, now that you have all this data, you have a lot of it, how do you organize it so you can be used downstream efficiently? So that's really kind of how I got started into this. And what was really fortunate is I've found that as I've been getting deeper and deeper in AI, there's so much similarities and overlap between data engineering, analytics engineering, and what's really needed with AI and for companies to onboard AI into their organization.
So now, then, with AI, how are you working with your clients now with context engineering?
Yeah. So right now, I mean, most companies don't have any sort of AI. They're just like, what's going on? So at a very foundational level, it's, a very basic strategy. Like, how can you onboard this technology into organization to where it can actually scale and you can actually use it? So there's a foundational strategy step. And in terms of, how companies can onboard this, there's really, yeah, I would say, you can't really have an AI strategy without a data strategy. So it's like a lot of what I've already just been doing. And so it's kind of just taking what always been doing and just now tweaking it a little bit. So it's been very, very fortunate. But yeah, you need to have a very clear roadmap and set of principles and process around your organization's data. And if you really want to use AI outside of a single use case, because a lot of companies, they'll just slap on one tool, AI tool, great. Or they'll slap on one automation. But then, okay, try now scaling that to other parts. Then they're kind of in silos, they're disconnected. And then they start to hit these walls where, this data doesn't make sense. What's going on here? So yeah, to answer your question, it's really coming up with a foundational strategy to move forward and then incrementally helping. But yeah, AI, there's a few mental models that approach it. But I mean, you either have agents or you have workflows. Workflows are really you have a very clearly defined goal what the output is. You have this workflow and has this objective. Great. So you have an AI, you have workflows, and then you have agents, which are more goal seeking. So you come to it. You have an agent, and this agent has access to tools, data, context, and it'll help you determine that goal. You say, have this problem, it'll help you find the goal. So those are the
Mhm.
two domains. And it's,
Gotcha.
how do you roll that out? And then how do you set up the data to help that happen? And it goes in a lot of directions from there.
That's amazing, and I love that you've had your own business for a while. How do you, like, continue to generate clients? Is it mostly through referrals?
Clients. So I've been fortunate to have some great clients over the years that have been growing and been growing together.
Mhm.
And then outside of that, getting new clients, referrals, certainly. And we've been rolling out we've been doing a lot of LinkedIn actually. So there's two main channels we do. One is LinkedIn. I'm doing a monthly webinar on LinkedIn, and we have a lot of automations around to reach out, outreach within LinkedIn. And then we also do cold email outreach to generate attendees for the webinars. We got our webinar system down. That's all solid. And then outside of that, what I also have is when I got started with this, I was doing Upwork, and I was fortunate enough to go to the top of my niche. Was this like 5, 6 years ago? And so I have a great, very well optimized Upwork profile.
Yeah.
And then so I have someone that I hired to manage that and basically send out proposals and manage that whole pipeline. So those are my two main sources right now. So current clients keep me busy, and then new ones coming in through LinkedIn and our
That's awesome. That's really interesting. And as a business owner, like, and I know that you also love to travel a lot. What is your like work life balance? Like, how many hours a day are you working? Have you delegated a lot of tasks out?
yeah. So it shifts. It definitely shifts. And my intention around working is 30 hours a week. And when I say 30 hours, I'm sitting down in a computer and I'm focused and I'm working,
Yeah.
I'm doing something. And I log
Mhm.
that time. There's a lot of, logistical hours that come into that. So I think the 30 hours is probably more than most people's 40-hour work week. But yes, that's hours that I log and bill and attribute to certain projects. So 30 hours a week is really a good balance, I would say. But I often fall out of balance. I would say that's one of my biggest challenges is finding balance between my health, traveling, relationships, and keeping things moving with work.
Mhm.
Delegation. Yeah, I have a great team, and
Mhm.
there's some things that I'm s- still learning how to automate. I think it's some of the more complex white glove type of work. But there's a lot we have automated. I think especially with AI too. AI's the workflows in it has been really great for automation.
Mhm.
And yeah, just having if there's a process that can be done by a human, then how to do it. And so we do have a lot of data entry and VAs doing work. So,
Mhm.
but yeah, I think the thing there, I think the trick for me, and this is kind of a pattern across personal and business life, is just have very good tracking around all of it and understanding. And that'll tell me, okay, I should go work. This is something I should shift away from. This is something I should automate. So yeah, I've been very meticulous about tracking my time and my hours, so I know exactly where my time's going. I know exactly, and then we have a internally with all my contractors and my team, we have a really good system of logging tasks, activities, classifying them. So yeah, I can see where all the time's going. I have a pretty good view of that.
Mhm.
And that's been helpful in keeping
Gotcha.
balance and making decisions.
That's awesome. I love that. Yeah, I mean, because me, you, a bunch of people that we know, I mean, we met at a party that's full of basically nomads and entrepreneurs and business owners. And I'm always interested to see how people find that balance. And I know Latin America is great to find some of that remote talent. Where have you hired your team members from?
So I'm mostly focused on Latin America. And the reason was because I think when I was at my first job, I was there for 5 years. I had this dream of traveling, learning Spanish, accessing the Latin America talent market. and staying in this time zone. And I've more or less done that. And so it's been Latin America. I do have talent in Asia, but it's mostly been Latin America. And yeah, in terms of, I think when I was some of my best people on my team is just the people I encountered while traveling, I live in Merida. A lot of my team's there. Mm. And I think the other really um, successful way to find my team members was there are certain tools and technologies that we use for data engineering, and some of them are open source. And so I looked on the GitHub and I could see all the contributors to these open source projects. And I was just looking at the ones that who were the top contributors, which ones are in Latin America. And I just reached out to them and say, hey man, wanna hop on a call. And so I found some great team members that way.
That's awesome. I love that. What is your opinion, since you're an expert in data and AI, what is your opinion on the AI bubble? The the fact that, so many resources are going into building data centers now, and I feel like it's being talked about so much now.
AI bubble. You know, if you look at every bubble, everyone would say this one's different. And I think this one's different, but I think this one is fundamentally different. So uh, I think we're due for a correction. Will that be on the level of 2007? I'd say there's some fundamental changes that we're going to see happening, and I think a lot of them are overlapping to
Hmm.
where it could go either way. I mean, financially, if you look at it, sure, yeah, I think it hits a lot of the definitions of the bubble,
Hmm.
especially if you look at how OpenAI and how NVIDIA and how they're just doing this funding circus and where's it coming from and like what's and if you look at kind of the fundamentals, but at the same time, I think the geopolitical dynamics are really at play here, especially with where things coming to a head of with kind of like the dollar's at risk right now, like as being the global reserve currency. You have BRICS, which is basically they're challenging the hegemony of the U.S. dollar, and so you have uh, the things that like the US could very likely do to kind of mitigate that. Like I think it's all on the table right now. So yeah, I don't think we've had a bubble at the same time that we've also had like a tipping point and the change of global world of order too. So I think that's kind of a wild card there. So that's
Yes, definitely lots of moving parts in there. Lots of the global world order is something that I think about a lot, and everything that's going on in the United States, and just I guess we're just witnessing the fall of an empire, and that's sad in many ways, especially because I love the United States, but at the same time, I don't feel as safe living there as I do in Colombia or Mexico, and there's just so many parts to it about the American dream, about how things have just become so unaffordable that you basically a lot of people do need two incomes to survive, to even buy a house. Like I think for me personally, I've kind of questioned everything that I thought I wanted or everything that I was told was what we should aim for. And I know that you live a life of freedom. You've lived in many different types of places. I'm sure you've thought about all these things many times in your lifetime. I guess for you, like what's next? Where are you going to live next? What do you want to do next in your business?
yeah. I mean the living thing is a big one. I think at my heart, it's hard for me to envision going somewhere and just staying there. 'Cause I traveled for 7 years and 80 different cities, like 25-ish countries. And I'm at the point where I really want to build,
Yeah, definitely.
and I think the question is, okay, where do you want to build that community? Which places check most of those boxes? Medellin checks a lot of those, but I also do want to have. I do need after couple months in one place, I kind of get this
Yep.
inner desire to change it up. So, I think right now I'm looking for probably two communities. One in Colombia. I don't know where the other one is. I don't think it's in Asia. If Asia had better time zones, it'd definitely be somewhere on the beach in Thailand.
I know exactly what I think all the time.
Yeah, that's but, so I haven't found base number 2, and I do see myself going back home in the United States at least once a month. So, yeah, that's kind of a new transition for me that I'm building into, and on the work side, um, I mean, it's all in on ARAC right now, so I think there's a I feel like there's this I feel like I'm a surfer and there's this big wave coming and I'm like paddling out because I want to catch it. And so I feel like I'm in that phase right now where I'm paddling really quickly and it's going to take I don't think I can really predict what direction that's going to take. I have some ideas. I think it's going to be very similar and I know kind of what I think what I'm focusing on right now with context engineering is, 100% the way to go. It aligns with my experience and skills. That's what I'll be doing. That could take so many different shapes.
Definitely. And every entrepreneur I know that I've talked to on my podcast has overcome some pretty major struggles to be successful. What are some or one of the most, difficult struggles that you've had to overcome?
Struggles to overcome, difficult struggles. On the business side, it's been the traditional ones, nothing too unique there. I think on the personal side, I think there's been so much discovery about myself and finding that balance. And I think for me, it was, working so much to kind of honestly the point of burnout and
Mm, mhm.
and then kind of hitting that wall and then it's really kind of finding that inner that inner purpose. So I think that was really the challenges. It was the working to the point of kind of losing the connection to the purpose of your work and then finding that. So I know that's very why, but that was probably it's like finding like why, what's your motivation? I think that's probably a big challenge for so many people. Like why you do what you do was important. Like, why not? I see these people with, living good life on the beach, travel to these beaches, selling coconuts on the beach. I'm like, why couldn't I sell coconuts on the beach like these people? Why not? Like, what's the difference? Why is what's inside of me that's not letting me do that? Because that seems appealing. So I think there's a lot of the inner work.
Interesting. So, what have been some of your tools or ways that you've moved through that journey of self discovery and finding that purpose?
Yeah, I would say, um, the first 3 years I was in a relationship and, learned I had so many breakthroughs with that. I'm really grateful for that. I think started doing therapy when I was in that relationship. We're doing it together. That helped expand me and put me on such an amazing path of personal growth. So I think, it was therapy. And then when that relationship ended, one thing I really noticed was that created so much space and the things that then were pulled into my life, uh, were, set me on these other, wild the journeys of growth. So tools, yeah, I would say it's always going to come down to, having space for yourself and then kind of the people and the relationships that come into your life. Well, yeah, I think I give all the credit to kind of the people that I've met, but you can't meet these people if you don't have space. So it's yeah, having space for yourself and building new connections and relationships. So I give all credit to the people who inspired me. Yeah, and then since I remember the past 3 years, I've gone through this journey of like plant medicine, lived in India. I got my yoga teacher training. I did a lot of tantra immersions in Thailand. I've done all sorts of breath work and all these. I've tried all these things. I think probably, I'd say the one tool probably has given me the most has been breath work, I would say.
Interesting. That is amazing. How long did you live in India and what was that like?
I did a couple months there and I would say India is, you know, you travel Latin America and it's kind of the same. Like it's different. I'm not going to say it's all the same with them, but you kind of get it. It's like, okay, yeah, there's a lot. I've been to the city. It has this church and it has this. You can go to Asia too. And it's great. It's different. India is its own thing. It's its own beast. It is To me, I describe it as a full frontal attack on all your senses. It's loud, it is colorful. There's all sorts of smells you've never had before. Um, and it's wild. And so it was great. I think about it a lot. And um, what was great about India is you just, I really sensed a fundamental difference in the culture where uh, it was so much like spirituality was just so ingrained in them. Yeah, I remember after I did my yoga teacher training, I did a Vipassana and a yoga teacher training, and I was in Rishikesh, and I went down. That was like my last week, and I went down to the Ganga River, and just walking along. And there's some kids, they're smoking hash. Just these like hoodlums smoking hash. You go chat them up, but then your kids you'd see in any country just hanging out, smoking hash, but they're talking about like non-duality and all these things. And I was like, this is so weird. It's so different. You just would not get that. And so that was one thing that always stuck with me was just, there's something so fundamentally different. It comes from just such a different place there. It's hard to explain. But food is great too.
Interesting. Yeah, I haven't been to India yet, but I definitely want to. And everything that you described is what I've heard about it.
Mhm.
All over Southeast Asia, and like you said, the time zone, if it were easier to work US hours, I love Thailand. If I didn't have any money, I'd just smoke weed on a beach in Thailand every day.
Thailand, that's my spot too. If it wasn't for the time zone, I'd be in Thailand.
Mhm. And you mentioned okay, so you mentioned breath work. What kind of training did you do? Or like what yeah, what type of breath work?
I'm actually looking to do a teacher training for breath work.
Cool.
It's yeah, I've just done them all: rebirthing breath work, holotropic breath work. Yeah, I think for me, I was using a lot of when I was deep into work. I was using a lot of stimulants. I was using a lot of coffee. I was using a lot of marijuana, and it would get me through it. Uh, you know, I think it was with breath work was the first time it would give me a lot of that. It dropped me into my body more. So Wim Hof, I think there's that one Wim Hof video of like there's that simple 2-minute one, and what that doing that and what it was able to do for me, just with my breath, I could get this state. I could achieve this state with breathing in 10 minutes. That was a massive shift for me. So yeah, I think a lot of kind of all my biggest transitions in the past 3 years really started with that.
Interesting. So now what is your daily routine to prepare for the day, or is breath work a part of that?
Gotten breath work down that is part of my routine. I really start my day with that.
Mhm.
And on top of that, my routines do shift a little bit. I think the things I'm most consistent with are, and I do have a game with myself where I do squats and push-ups every day. Start the day. That's check that off. I'm 36 years old now, and every day I do 36 push-ups and 36 squats. Next in 2 months, I'll shift that up to 37 when I have my birthday. So it's a game I have with myself, and so when I'm 60, 70 years old, we'll see. The game's going to get harder, but that's like a little game I have with myself. So I love doing that. And
Yeah.
that I add in my breath work. I try to feel my heart and gratitude. That's something I really make an intention to connect with every day. So
Mhm.
those things I'd say just, the maintenance of hitting my 36. And then yeah, the breath work and then gratitude. And if I can find nature, if there's nature by me and I connect with it and I slow down and I try not to touch my phone until noon. Rarely do that, but that's the intention.
That's awesome. And you mentioned tantra and yoga training. Can you talk more about what tantra is?
Oh, geez. Tantra. Yeah. So, I mean, Tantra to me, it's, it's cultivating a state of loving presence. It's really what it is. So I think one of my biggest breakthroughs with that and what I learned in Tantra is that so much of what I envision my tied to is what I can provide to others and my family financially and material. And so to me, I think of like my parents and okay, make them money and then okay, they're good, they're happy. But I also learned that if I could probably give some people, my parents or other people, all the money in the world, I don't think it'd really change how there's some things they'd probably, be upset about some things still. But I also realized, through Tantra and, if I just have a conversation with them, if I don't, not giving them money, if I just have a conversation with them, really kind of bring a uplifting energy, that they feel better and that they feel seen, they feel heard, and they can feel the presence of my love in my heart, then that's probably gonna have a better impact. That's probably gonna be as supportive, if not more, than any financial contribution I can make to them. So I think, well, yeah, that was my biggest, lesson from that is cultivating that for myself and then bringing that presence to other people. It's going to impact them as much as any sort of material contribution you can. But yeah, and what is Tantra? Yeah, I think it's a set of tools and techniques to help you cultivate that presence. That's how I do it.
Interesting. Did you grow up in a spiritual or religious family?
No, I mean, I had some years growing up in Tennessee where it was very religious, and I kind of got a jaded view of religion then. I never was pulled. I went to an apostolic Christian academy when I was in like fifth or sixth grade. So I did a few years in Tennessee. It was very religious, and I kind of had a jaded view because it a lot of what I was observed, at least in my household and my immediate perspective, wasn't what I would call functional. And so I was kind of put off by that. And then with my degree and all that, I had a very analytical mind. So I adopted a very, what I can model statistics and probability can model the world. To just explain the world. Okay, this is how things should be. This is how it is. This is the frequency of certain things. You can just explain it all, and now the world's figured out. But yeah, no, it wasn't until probably in the past 5-ish years that I started to gain perspective that, not all these things I've experienced are exactly random. It's not as I can't model it with statistics. Like my model of the world was breaking. I noticed there's certain things that, the universe is kind of pushing us in certain directions. And it's been a beautiful journey, but I'd say that kind of that side has been more developed over the past 5-6 years.
Yeah, that's really interesting because, like, a lot of people I meet who are very analytical and data driven feel like, well, there is no room for spirituality because everything is explainable. They have this sense of being in control, and there is no room for questioning things or growth because it is the way it is. This is numbers, and that's it. So I always find it very interesting when people like you, who are experts in data, have that spiritual aspect and have done that exploration and growth and question the world around them. I think that's awesome.
It's been a fun theme
And well, just to wrap things up here, what are you most excited about for next year?
next year. Yeah. I'm really excited about, I'd say the past 5-ish years, I'd say, work's always been there, but I was doing more of a more internal spiritual focus, and that's always going to be there. I think that's 100% there. But I see so much changing with how we work and think about work and the type of work we do with AI and kind of the workflows and agents. And yeah, and it's like I think there's going to be a whole new set of problems and things to focus on that we'll have the bandwidth to do now. And it's kind of like in agricultural revolution or industrial revolution. It's like after agricultural revolution, I mean, spend like 16 hours a day farming, and then you didn't even know what like this whole dimension of problems that you need to have the bandwidth to do. Now we're gonna be able to automate so much of what we traditionally do in a work in our day-to-day work lives that I think there's this whole, multiple dimensions of problems that we just haven't had the bandwidth to even work on and focus on. And I think that's all opening up. And just in the and within like context engineering and data, I've always been doing analytics with certain types of data, the data that you have, but there's so much other data that we just didn't have one of the means to capture it, or even if we did the bandwidth to do anything about it. So there's all these layers that I see coming, and it's just green pastures and cutting into this. It's it's so exciting to me, just all these different new problems that we'll have the opportunity to solve. It's like right now, like, what would you do if you had 100 hours of the day? Like, how would your life be different?
Hmm.
Like, that's basically what's going to happen. We're going to have so yeah, it's like 10x our minimum what we could do, and so just basically do that thought experiment. If you didn't have to do all that you're doing right now, what would you work on? With all that was solved, what would you work on? And then repeat that question 10 times. What are you working on? We don't know, but there's going to be these new challenges that we're going to get to crack into, and we'll be the first generation, first set of workers to really do this. That's what's really exciting. I'm really excited about that, and I think I view it as like compound interest now, where with these automations, you automate like this one task, this one little thing, and it saves you like 1 hour a week. That adds up to like 50 hours of course of the year. You just keep finding those, and that's adding. So it's this compound,
Hmm.
exponential growth of what you're spending your time doing and what your output is.
Hmm.
So yeah, what does that look like? I have no idea, but it'll be fun. It's exciting.
Love that. Well, thank you so much for joining me today on my podcast. It was great having you. And for everyone else, please tune into the next episode of the Breakthrough Blueprint.